welcome everyone. I've already greeted our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Matthias Rusere, and the other participants as well. So today's topic is going to be on psychosocial risks at the workplace. So before we get into the details of the agenda, maybe we can start with mentioning our sponsors, that is TIL1, Center for Learning, NASA, and Zimbabwe Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, ZIOSH. These guys have been supporting Panira for a very long time now. We thank them very much. So today's agenda, we are going to talk about, on our toolbox talk, we are going to have the topic lone worker, and the main topic for the day is psychosocial risks at the workplace. As we may all know, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Basically, like across all races throughout the globe, mental health is one of the most stigmatized health issues that everyone faces, be it at work or whatever. So us being professionals, we've decided to talk about psychosocial risks at the workplace. How do we destigmatize psychosocial risks by talking about them? So that's how we came up with the topic psychosocial risks at the workplace. Our safety star for today is Mr. Matthias Rusere. He is a certified wellness practitioner and he has more than 12 years of experience in workplace wellness, programming, and community mobilization. He is also the director of Renew It Trust. For those of you who know it, I noticed Mr. Basil already knows Mr. Rusere. So he's going to be our safety star for the day. So before we dive into the toolbox talk, a few ground rules for you guys. Please make sure that you mute your microphone when you're not talking. And for those of you who want, you can leave your video on, it's fine. Then for questions and answers during the session, you can use the chat button. You can simply type and we'll be referring to the chat here and there throughout the discussion. So yeah, let's enjoy this, guys. So Teach is going to be my co-host for the day. I'm not sure if he has joined in yet. He was having technical issues, but I'm sure he'll be joining us soon. He's going to be my co-host during the session. So now, the toolbox talk, I'm going to do that one for you guys today. So yes, I'm going to go into the toolbox talk. Let me quickly lone worker. So we're going to start by defining what a lone worker is. Basically, a lone worker is just someone who works in isolation, where they are alone without direct supervision or away from others. So an example of lone workers, we have your truck drivers, we have your lab workers, you have your cleaners who clean at night, we have meter readers, we have security guards, night shift workers, writers. But as of last year, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, we've had an increase in the number of lone workers due to the COVID-19 regulations of social distancing. People have had to work from home, you all know, during the lockdown, and others have had to work, those who work at the offices have had to work in isolation to observe social distancing. So that's just pictures of some of the lone workers. We have truck drivers, we have security guards and all. So what are some of the risks that are associated with lone working? To start, I'm going to mention that we have abuse and assault. This applies to those lone workers, for example, meter readers, for example, drivers, and they may be abused or assaulted by the public or customers. I have an example of late. I've noticed that the guys who are doing the 2022 census, they've been walking around houses. So I've had an example whereby people in my community have been saying, we can't let them in because we don't know who they are. So these guys, they are walking around the houses one, and they have situations whereby the people are shouting at them, asking them, who are you, and all that. And others may even let the dogs bite them because they are not sure. Everyone wants to be safe from burglars and all that. Then there's the issue of ill health. As you know, truck drivers, the ones that drive haulage trucks, they are usually alone. And these may face ill health issues, such as in case of an emergency, someone may just have a heart attack. Who is going to be there to help them? No one. Then the environment. The environment in this case is referring to bad weather or attack from animals in the wild. Then emergency situations, the one that I just mentioned, that someone may have a heart attack and they are alone. Then what? Then accidents, someone may fall on a ladder if they are working alone. Then what? So the consequences, we move on to the consequences of lone working. The consequences of lone working, if you look at abuse and assault, it may result to physical injury. It may result to physical injury as the person may be attacked by the public or the service users. Then lone working also may lead to depression. It may also lead to anxiety. It may also lead to sleeping difficulties. Imagine someone working alone in a jungle. They may not be able to sleep because of fear of what may happen to them. It may also lead to low self-esteem, job dissatisfaction, and inefficiency. What can we do to improve the safety of lone workers? Okay, so first and foremost, there's need to do a risk assessment so that you come up with, you get to know the risks that are associated with the type of job that the lone worker is supposed to carry out. Well, in most case scenarios, the ideal situation would be to avoid having a lone worker. But when we have one, we need to put in place measures to ensure that the lone worker is safe. So a health surveillance is also critical because you cannot put someone who probably has asthma attacks, like during winter. You can't put them in an environment that is very cold and where they are alone. What happens when they have an asthma attack? Then there is also the issue of communication. You need to be able to communicate with the lone worker, probably have a procedure for that, to say that at this and that time, if we don't get in touch with the lone worker, then we raise an alarm. Then there are also lone worker devices that are used. So the employer is responsible for providing devices such as automatic warning devices, ID cards, radios, the ones that are used by security guards. And also there is need for extra training on emergency preparedness and response. That is to say, you can't just expect the lone worker to respond in a certain way without training them. Then there is also need to have lone worker legislation. I know there are countries that already have lone worker legislation like Australia, UK, and all that. So there is need to advocate for lone worker legislation. So that's it from me. Any questions on our toolbox? Contributions or anything? It's now open to the floor.
Okay.
Ranga, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you. There's that saying that goes by, to alone you can go as fast, but together we can go far. It's unfortunate that the pandemic has turned most people people into lone workers. But a question that I want to pose to the audience is how best we can deal with our situations as lone workers, how best we can enjoy our jobs while keeping safe at all times. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Irevai, I see your hand is up. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Cherit. For my contribution is as follows. In terms of interventions, some organizations have since introduced lone worker policy in terms of lone working. It's one of the interventions probably that we can try to take aboard. Then again, like you mentioned, to say whether in change of environment and so forth, again, other organizations, they've gone a step ahead by implementing what is called risk-based deployment, where they would know the situations, the conditions prevailing amongst their employees. So they deploy based on the conditions among other risks associated with the work environment. So the issue of risk-based deployment there is very, very important. Again, the issue of probably surveillance, monitoring lone workers or lone working, if you do have them within your system, like use of drones, CCTV, those ones can help. Even if someone may have a device, say a two-way radio communication device, but if in the event of attack by an animal, among other, that person might not be in a position to raise an alarm. But if we've got medical surveillance system, someone can easily quick and the assistance could be rendered immediately. I know there's a certain organization where a security guard, during the day, it was just around 3 p.m. during the day, this person, security guard, was manning a generator. Apparently, there was a python approaching him, and coincidentally, there was two guys who were driving to that area to refuel that generator, and those were the guys who saved the day. And he was almost about to be attacked when they sounded the water. The guy just collapsed because when he turned his head, he just saw a huge snake just a meter away from him. So he just became powerless. And by that moment, the snake just turned and disappeared. So issue of lone workers is really an important topic. Thank you for bringing that up. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makanda. That was a very valid contribution. I think you've also touched on some points that would answer the question raised by Ranga. Anyone else with an addition, contribution? Koketso Lepatole. I can see your hand is up. You can go ahead. Koketso, are you there? Okay, Mr. Tichaona, I see your mic is on. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tonde, for that presentation. It was so insightful. But I would like to add on, of course, there are certain jobs that need someone to work alone. But for employers, before you send someone to work alone, first things you need to consider is the person okay, are the risks associated with that certain job? Can they be managed by one person? That's one thing. And also you need to check that if the person medically fit or suitable to work alone. so that we have people who have mental issues, those things that we're going to touch on. You cannot send someone in that condition to work alone. So those are some of the things we need to touch on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Teach. Koketso Lefatole, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to just point out a few points here, and then one of the points you have already talked about in terms of hierarchy of control, and we know that the first point is that you need to avoid loan working where it is reasonable. Where it is not reasonable, practicable to avoid such loan working, I think management must consider developing policies that will guard against loan working. I think one of the guests already have mentioned this one. I think also there needs to be a reporting procedure and paperwork which will have to be developed and make sure that incidents are brought into the attention of management, because during loan working, there are many things that are happening, but you find out there is a lack of reporting, whereby those events which are happening behind management's concern are not actually brought into their attention. Therefore, they cannot put in place all necessary preventable measures to make sure that they don't happen again. So reporting procedure of such incidents which are happening within the loan working, it must be developed. Among other things, also there needs to be an emergency procedures which also they need to be developed so that an immediate planned response can be carried out in an event whereby accidents such as hostages is actually taking into place. So I think those are some of the things that I just wanted to put into place. And some of the things can be to avoid carrying valuable things. It depends which type of loan working are we talking about. But as we're talking about the general loan working, I think some of the guys can just try to avoid carrying things like your laptops, things that you can trigger a robbery for people who are working alone. I think those are my inputs, Chair. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Koketso. That was a very valid contribution. And to add on to that, other organizations for the general loan workers, like the truck drivers and your meter readers, they are now sending people in pairs. Instead of sending a driver alone, they're now sending people in pairs so that if they can't contact the other one, they contact the other one. And obviously, if one has like probably a heart attack, the other one will be able to report, because you have scenarios whereby you see headlines on the news where it says a truck driver is in fact dead, and probably the truck driver would have been dead for days. When truck drivers just park by the roadside, no one really goes there because they are really scared of the truck drivers. So yeah, I think that was a valid contribution. Thank you very much for everyone who contributed.